Hello, I am back to talk about reducing prejudice. I wanted to give this its own little video for a couple of reasons. But the main one is that this is a big topic in social psychology. How can we help reduce prejudice out there in the big world? It's kind of a short section of your book, but there's a lot more out there. So, if you are interested, there's all kinds of articles out on the interweb. If you want to Google the top 10 ways to reduce prejudice, check it out. Um, I will try to find the article I'm thinking of and post a link for you on Canvas. Also on Canvas last week, I posted a video thinking, oh, you'll watch it and it'll be kumbaya and you'll learn all about how to reduce prejudice. It's the Robbers Cave experiment. They talk about it in this section, and we'll get to it in a minute, but it's one of the best, like, experiments that shows how you can reduce prejudice by getting people to work together toward a common goal. So please, if you have not already, go back and watch that one. I'll explain it in a little more detail shortly. So basically, in this section, they talk about two main theories in terms of how to reduce prejudice. And the first one honestly doesn't work that well. It's a good start. The second one is better. So the contact hypothesis, in a nutshell, is the view that social interactions between social groups can reduce prejudice. So the in group getting to know the out group. Yes, just being around them. It can help. Um, you get to know some individuals. Um, if you're trying to get people to get along on a bigger societal value, you can have media depicting people from all different sorts of groups. So, having more minorities represented, whatever those minorities are. So having more Black people on TV, more Hispanic people on TV, more Asian people on TV, have gay couples as well as straight couples, and representing maybe bisexuality or having more women in power positions or whatever. So exposing people in real life to other groups, in the media to other groups. Um, the effectiveness does vary. Um, it depends on the level of prejudice and if people actually interact or engage with that other group. So it's one thing if there's a TV show that has white people and black people interacting, it's another if people don't watch it. Or if you're around people and you stay segregated, literally, by whatever group you're a part of in the first point. So you don't really make contact with the other group. Um, if you can um, have friend groups that are inclusive, people tend to be happier. This particular study looked at minorities attending universities and how they felt like they belonged and if they felt like they were a part of the university community. And they found that as a minority, if you can have friends in the majority group, then they felt better integrated and more a part of a school. Um, so again, this contact is important. Parasocial contact. Yeah, that's through media. They just call it parasocial, which sounds weird, like paranormal, but anyhow. Um, Unfortunately, if the contact is not good, if people are not encouraged to actually get to know each other or have a purpose for getting to know each other, you can have mistrust and anxiety. People don't really get to know each other, and you can increase some prejudice and hostility. Um, in order for contact to reduce prejudice, you need to get rid of this idea that one group is better than the other. That's really hard. But slowly changing social norms. Introduce people on as even a basis as possible. Having a common goal so that people are working toward the same thing. After 9/11, 2001, probably about the time you guys were born or a little before, um, all Americans came together as Americans because we had a common goal, a common enemy in this case, which is not the greatest way to go, but whatever. Um, we all got along and were nice to each other for a while because we were working toward having peace and not being attacked by other people from foreign lands. Having some intergroup cooperation, maybe introducing activities where people have to work together in order to succeed, and having support by laws and social norms. Laws alone won't do it, but changing social norms can. And that's a slow process of introducing the idea and introducing each other, people to each other, um, and that kind of thing. You have to create something called interdependence, where you need to work with people in order to get people to see each other as individuals, not group members, and try to reduce that prejudice. Now is when they finally bring up the Robbers Cave experiment. For those of you who may be unfamiliar, the Robbers Cave experiment was way back in the day, but in the 1950s or 60s, they created this camp where they had two groups of kids, the Eagles and the Rattlers, and they didn't interact with each other at first. And the Eagles became really close. They had all kinds of fun together. Same thing with the Rattlers. And then they learned of each other's existence. And so they became rivals. It got to the point of where like they were actually like raiding each other's camps and doing mean things to each other. Um, and it got to be honestly a little scary in terms of how much the two groups kind of became hateful of each other. Then they tried to put them together and it didn't really work. Get them to play sports, hang out. They were still Eagles and Rattlers. The thing that brought them together, and I'm not joking here, they cut off the water supply to the camp. And so the boys that were a part of this camp had to work together to literally dig a trench to reconnect the water supply for the camp. Um, no one was harmed in that process, but they could have been, so it's a pretty unethical experiment. Anyhow, um, after working together um, over this common interest, um, these kids slowly started to get along better. And so by the end of it, they were people just trying to survive summer camp and get some water set up so they could shower and use the toilet and stuff like that, and not just have the bare basics of water to survive. Um, so yeah, the Robbers Cave experiment is a classic. And it's that working together towards some sort of common goal that seems to work best when reducing prejudice. Um, in literally one slide, they stick this in there real quick of how it can go wrong. Then they talk about how you can introduce this interaction in classrooms. So starting at very young ages, preschool, kindergarten, elementary school, setting up something called the jigsaw classroom, where you have small groups of people who work together in class and have intentionally those groups be quite diverse. And you have to work together to succeed in school. And typically, people who are a part of this jigsaw classroom show less prejudice when they grow up. So basically, getting people together with a common cause from a young age can help reduce prejudice. There's a little bit more detail in there. Take a look at it. Let's go back to what happens when contact goes wrong. And they always use the example of the integration of schools in the 60s and 70s. As someone who grew up in a town where integration didn't happen until absolutely forced to, um, I feel like I can honestly say that the The climate has to be right for it to happen, and sometimes you have to force the climate. Um, so just sticking people together all of a sudden is not going to work. You have to build some sort of trust. Um, and get people accustomed to this idea and do it gradually in a manner where people can feel more comfortable. So get that intergroup contact going before, um, and let people get to know each other and not just like it's going to happen now. You tend to have all kinds of fighting, turmoil, fights, hatred that breaks out. Um, and they talk about how, in particular with schools, it's a competitive environment to get those good grades and to get into college. Students are not necessarily of equal status in terms of back then, the white schools were much better than the black schools, even though they were separate but equal crap. Um, and so again, trying to integrate people who come from different levels and get them to the same place was super challenging. So it took time in most places to get it right in terms of trying to desegregate the schools and integrate them into a system where um, people could stand to be around each other. And that's a horrible thing, but that's what it is. So now they're introducing the jigsaw classroom after segregation going wrong, desegregation, integration in the 60s and 70s. And like, how can we prevent that from happening? And they're like, jigsaw classroom. So start people off young, being around other people. Hopefully, the whole society is moving into a jigsaw classroom where neighborhoods are more diverse and you get to be around people and understand different cultures and backgrounds and um, that kind of thing. But at least you can try it in school if it's not happening in the real world and teach people literally while they're in school how to get along with people. So yeah, basically be open to new ideas, new people, new things is one of the top ways of reducing prejudice. Like I said, I'll create a link to one of my favorite little articles on top 10 ways to reduce prejudice and check out that Robbers Cave video. There are a couple other videos from last week I posted on different topics from the chapter. If you haven't seen them, take a look. I hope you're all well, and I will talk to you later. Bye.